First of all, thanks to Coach Jackson for putting this on every year. It's an absolute honor to be one of the presenters and share my knowledge and everything I kind of know. And I'm actually really excited for this presentation here, just because it's something I've been passionate about for a while, and something I got a chance to look into a little bit more, and learned a lot making this presentation for you guys. So I'm really excited for that. And then along with that, just I think this whole, three phases coaching clinic is such a huge thing in our province, all of our coaches. So again, always pumping up Coach Jackson. Guy does a wonderful job for our community. So without further ado, building culture in the weight room, or using the weight room, whatever lingo you want to use for that. That's our topic tonight. Quick background for you guys, just because I don't know everybody who's watching this. So quick background for you guys. Finished my kin degree at the University of Regina in 2016. As Coach Jackson said, played with the Thunder for 5 years right out of high school until 2016. Decided to pursue football. So I went to the University of Guelph in 2018. Finished with a business degree, or a business certificate, and an arts degree. And at the same time got my CSCS through the NSCA. My experience, level 10, I did my fieldwork there when I was at the U of R. And then since the pandemic started, I kind of took over with the Thunder and became the head strength conditioning coach there. And I've been there ever since. Currently engaged, still waiting on a wedding. Thanks to the pandemic, we've pushed that back once. Along with that, I also officiate hockey and football. So rule knowledge there as well. I just love sports, and I love the game, and I love learning about it. So everything I kind of do with this is coming from the heart, coming from a lot of passion. Overview for tonight, just so you guys kind of know what's coming. We're going to define culture. We're going to talk about that, what football culture is, and define team culture. Go through the role of the weight room, goals of the weight room, the benefits in and out of football, role of the coaching staff, defining your own culture, how to create relationships, or what we should be doing to creating relationships, and then how to kind of connect to every athlete, and then, putting all the puzzle pieces together, translating, moving that from the room onto the field, who's in charge, and what's your culture, and then of course finishing with my favorite part, the questions. All right, so let's start. Let's define what is culture. After doing some Googling and some research there's 4 definitions from Merriam-Webster, the customary beliefs, social forms, and material traits of racial, religious, or social group, set of shared attitudes, values, goals, or practices that characterizes an institution or organization, set of values, conventions, social practices associated with a field activity or societal characteristic, or integrated pattern of human knowledge, belief, and behavior that depends upon capacity for learning and transmitting knowledge for generations. The reason why I bring this up, because I know all you guys have a Google machine in your hands and you can search this, is it's kind of vague. The definition of culture, even looking at societal forms, things like that, it's still a very vague definition, which makes it tough when you start talking about culture. What is your culture in terms of football? What is your culture in terms of a team? But the biggest thing that kind of stands out, what are the values, the conventions, the social practices, what are the goals? Those 4 things kind of carry regardless of what you're looking at in terms of culture. So that's really what we want to focus on. When we move forward, football. What is football culture? Tough, strong, hardworking athlete that can handle the physical and mental aspects of the sport, right? Physical, fast, strong, intelligent, accountable, reliable. All words we kind of think of when we think of, a football culture, someone who plays football, someone who coaches football and wants to push these values into that. And then again, taking what we know there and moving it to team culture. What is team culture, right? Team definition here. Team culture is made up of the values, beliefs, attitudes, and behavior shared by a team. It's how people work together towards a common goal, how they treat each other. And the biggest thing here is they can be positive or negative. Just because someone has a culture doesn't mean it's a good culture. And again, we'll get into that a little bit later. And then the values, beliefs, attitudes are generally created or guided by the coach. Something very important. The coach kind of creates the culture. Coach is the one that, kind of highlights that culture. It's what they want their team to be. But the biggest thing is different teams, they manifest their own culture, but it's generally influenced by the team culture as a whole. So the coach can have a value or viewpoint on what their team culture is going to be, but the biggest thing is it actually comes from the team. So what do the players believe in? Especially when you look at football of a team of 30 to 50 to 90 guys. Um, it it's going to be a challenge to create a team culture in that sense. But the biggest thing is the team is what dictates the culture. So coaches can create and teach the culture, but it's what the team buys into and what they believe in or what they want to follow. So biggest thing is we want to make sure the team buys into that. Again, goals of the weight room, right? Of course, physical attributes. Um, they're pretty obvious. We want to build size, strength, power, everything like that, increase athletic ability. Um, Great things. Things we still want to keep in mind when we look at culture. But the biggest one is the habitual attributes, right? We want to create accountability. We want to create a stronger work ethic. We want to create smart goals and work towards them, create discipline, create teamwork and a positive dynamic. Um, in order to create those habitual goals, right, our physical attributes have to match. We have to focus on those in order to build it. But culture is what's going to create these positive habits, right? Our culture is what's going to push accountability. Our culture is what's going to push a stronger work ethic. It's what's going to push our goals and our discipline. So those are the things we're really going to focus on tonight. And then again, benefits in and out of football in the sport, of course, bigger, faster, stronger player, better endurance, less mistakes, higher standard set. But the biggest thing, again, we're looking at outside the sport, increased work ethic and accountability, whether that's in school, when they find a job, in their relationships, friendships, family, everything of that nature. And then again, increased discipline to accomplish and attain great jobs and relationships. Uh, Want to move through this rather quickly just because this uh, is somewhat straightforward when we think about culture. It's something somewhat straightforward when we talk about team culture. This team has good culture. So you see they're bigger, faster, stronger players. They're held to a higher standard. They're more accountable. Um, and you see it outside the community. But again, we're here to, how do we build that? How do we build that culture? And especially, how does the weight room play such a role in that culture? Well, the biggest thing is we want to create relationships, regardless of what type of coach you are, whether you're the head coach doing everything in a high school program, you're up at the higher levels, working with the university or the junior ranks, or even a SAS selects group where you have a select group of kids that don't go to the same school, but they come together to play football, right? So we want to create relationships, right? First things we want to do is we want to connect with athletes on a personal level. Connecting with athletes on a personal level is what enables coaches and other leaders to meet each member of the team, who they are, where they are, and facilitate that buy-in. We want the players to feel like a person. We want the players to feel like a player. We want them to have a belongingness and a connection to the team. If you want that good culture and that good relationship with your players, you don't want them to feel like a number. You don't want them just to feel like a name on the depth chart. You want them to feel like they belong, right? So you want your athletes, again, feel valued and understood. Um, when people in general feel valued and understood, they're more likely to reciprocate efforts and to connect because they have a greater motivation to act in a way that produces positive performance related outcomes. So we want these players to feel understood because then they feel like they're connecting with you. They feel like they belong within the team. They feel like they have a place within the team. So then because of that, they're more likely to reciprocate efforts to connect. So they're more likely to reach out to you. They're more likely to have conversations with you as a coach. They're more likely to want to be on the team, be part of the team, make friends with players in the team, um, and they'll want to do better. They'll want to be a better player and a better person. Um, the biggest thing that autonomous people, if they feel like a person, like I've been saying, they'll be empowered to have a greater sense of self, which leads to better connection with their team and better performance outcomes. So if they feel like a person and not like a number, they'll have a much greater connection to that football team. They'll have a much greater connection to their teammates and a much greater connection to you as a coach and the coaching staff. This is super important, especially when looking at the weight room. Um, Especially looking at the weight room, especially in football, we have such a short season, such a long off season. These are these are the things that we really want to push as a coach, so that these players want to be in the weight room. These players want to become better, right? Um, Love the quote at the bottom. Without a relationship, developing a team culture becomes too much of an externally regulated process, team expectations, and not enough of a democratic participation in a social grouping or tribe mindset. Without creating that relationship, there's that hard barrier between player and coach. There's that hard barrier between wanting to be part of the team or feeling like they're part of the team and feeling excluded. Um, and that's really what we want to avoid. We'll talk about tribe mindset in a little bit here, but the biggest thing is we want the players to feel like they belong. And creating that relationship will get you a better place in getting more buy-in, getting players to want to be there and want to belong. Um, so what does that entail? Making sure they have all the physical tools in place to perform optimally. That doesn't mean you need to have all the fancy gadgets, all the new tech, everything like that. Make sure they know that they have everything they need to be successful. So if you're a program, again, I'll relate a lot to the Thunder. If you're a program like the Thunder, I make sure they know that every single player has an off-season workout that they can complete from any gym throughout the province. I make sure that they have videos that show, this is how you do each exercise. This is how I want you to do the workout. And then on top of that, it's also a place where they can fill in their workouts, so that they can feel like they're also part of the team. That when they fill in the workouts, they're working out beside their teammates, even if they're not in the same city. Um, and they know that everything that we've given to them is to be able to perform at their highest level. It's that care factor. So if you're a high school coach or you're someone, especially now in a pandemic where you don't have all your resources, you want to make sure that all your athletes, everybody's stepping into the weight room or they're working out at home. You've done everything to show them that you're doing this to make sure that they become a better athlete. You're doing it to make sure that they're not kind of left on their own. You want them to have everything in place to perform optimally. The second thing is, what has to happen to optimize training. So what do we have to do to optimize that training? Again, we want to make sure that the athlete knows that they have everything there, but we also want them. We also want to educate them as well. We want them to know that, okay, yes, your teammates are in the gym lifting weights and you can't be there. That doesn't mean what you're doing is any less than what they're doing. So if you have an athlete at home that has to do body weight squats or they're using a backpack for weight instead of a barbell, you want to make sure that you care about them just as much as the guys coming into the weight room. You want to make sure you care about them, um, as much as the guys who have access to gyms that aren't training with the team. Um, and you want to educate them that, okay, what you're doing is you're still getting the same outcome. You're just doing it in a different manner. You're following a different path. And you want to care about why the athlete's training in the first place. I think the Thunder's a great example. Junior football is a great example, because you have players going to school. You have players working. You have players working towards their journeymen. So you might have guys who want to play in the CFL. You might have guys who want to, um, maybe not play junior, but go play CIS somewhere. And you might just have guys that want to play football because they like football and they're good at it. And it gets them a chance to hang out with their friends and let out some frustration. But you want to know why they're doing that. Why are they playing? Because every player is different. So you want to have those conversations and you want not only just find out, but you want to care why they're doing it so that you can be there for them when they start having struggles. So you can be there for them if they're a player who wants to play in the CFL and they're in their second year and they're not starting. You have to remind them, hey, this is a process. You're still young, you still have 3 years. having that relationship with them allows them to almost forget about the external factors, all the pressures, and they just put their trust in you, right? And then the last one, sharing whether competing is a challenge. So it's not a simple question. It's not something that you're gonna put on a sheet, or um, you're gonna ask them, day one, hey, why are you here today? It's hard to articulate. If you remember back from your playing days, if we have athletes in the Thunder right now watching, it's hard to share. I can relate to that 100%. One day I'm training because I'm gonna be in the CFL. The next day I'm training just as I want to start on Saturday. Um, and that roller coaster of emotions sometimes is hard to share. So making sure you're that door is always open. You're always having relationships. You're always having those conversations with those players. Tribe mentality. The biggest thing with tribe mentality is um, every player on the team has a role, and they get the shout out. They get noticed from a coaching staff, from a leader, from someone on the team, regardless of what their role is. So you want to put the same value on your star quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, making every play, as you do on the four string quarterback or the four string safety, who all he does is he cheers in the sidelines. He might not even dress. You want to make sure that every player from number one on the depth chart to number 95 in the depth chart has value, and they know they have value, and they know they have a role, and they know where they're supposed to be going. If every player has a value on your team, every on your team, they will want to work harder. That's especially important in the weight room. Um, when you bring a group of athletes in the weight room, where they all come from different backgrounds, they all come from um, different cities, and you're trying to connect all of them. It's a tough go. So you want to give them all value so that they can all find success in their own way. Because you might have the athlete who's very strong. He's going to find success by being strong. You have the athlete who's very fast. He can find success by being fast. But you got to think of that middle guy. He's not the biggest, not the fastest, he's not the strongest. But you want to make sure that he's still highlighted, that he reaches a PR on whatever exercise, and you want the team to know that, hey, yeah, he might be in the corner. You might not notice him because when he goes to do his max squats, he doesn't have the whole team around him cheering for him, but he's still noticed. The team still knows that, hey, this guy just hit a PR because he comes in, he works his butt off. He doesn't take a rep off, and he's putting the time in as well. Just because you don't notice him, he's still there. And then that last quote, exemplary behavior should be built on the core values of the team and then modeled by the coaches and encouraged in the athletes, instead of situations where the values and behaviors are two different systems, right? So again, that's that. If your value is you want guys to work hard, right? Coaching staff also has to do the same, and it should be pushed through the athletes. If the athletes see the coaches working hard in all of their roles and all of their jobs, and shared with the athletes, and the athletes will have more of that buy-in, and then they will encourage the efforts of hard work and dedication, if that's what you want to value. So that's a big thing we want to do with creating relationships. And again, connecting with every athlete. It's very easy to connect with the star athlete. They're the star. They're the guy you want to succeed. So you're trying to connect with them, but we want to connect with every athlete. So behavior can be reinforced with accountability. So every member of the team holds every other member of his team to the same standard, regardless of star player to rookie who hasn't made the team yet. They all have to make that baseline. They all have to maintain that same standard. Um, Once we find that standard and everybody's held to that standard, we gain so much more success from that, because now we're not having those levels of athletes. We don't have that player that's forgotten, and we're not always highlighting that star player, giving them free passes, or giving them an opportunity to slack off or be less than. the other player who's on that short lease, right? Attention to the consistent application of the culture. So again, in the weight room, we always want to bring back that culture. We always want to kind of resort back to that, whatever your team culture may be, because that allows you to instill those positive habits, those lifestyle habits, into the players, so that they can hold themselves accountable, right? Everything kind of works backwards. They can hold themselves accountable. Now every player on the team is held accountable, regardless of position on the depth chart, right? If culture has been consistently established as a habit, it's more likely to be present during the pressures associated with competition. So if we take our culture and we put it in the weight room, especially with our long off season, um, it'll come out in game day. It shows itself in the situations in which we're being forced with a challenge in those tough games, third and short, tie ball games, fourth quarters. That's where that culture is really going to show. So um, under pressure, most people tend to fall back to their normal habits. So if we allow players in the weight room to not follow the culture, kind of do what they want, have their freedom, that's what they're going to go back to when it comes into a pressured situation, right? To promote this, it's called task involving. So task involving climate is present when coach recognizes each individual athlete. So that's where that's when we look back, we want to highlight every single player. We want to make sure every player on the team knows their role and is recognized, and we show that they have importance within the organization, within the team, regardless of their position. Um, I actually learned this from Coach Jackson. I always like giving them small little shout outs. Special teams on a field goal, it's not just the long snapper and the holder and the kicker that make the play. It's the other 9 guys on the field, holding their block, stepping to the gap, making sure nobody gets through that wall. Because if we have one small seam, one small crack in that wall, there's a high possibility that that kick is blocked and the play is a failure, right? So we want to make sure we recognize every single player in those positions. And even, the scout team, if we don't find those cracks in that wall in practice and we don't know they're there, then they're exposed in game and we don't have that culture being built there. When we look in terms of the weight room, it's the exact same. If we have a guy not doing the right amount of reps and nobody kind of calls him out on it, or we have a guy slacking off and nobody calls him out on it, that's what's going to happen on game day. That's what's going to happen in the fourth quarter. Those are the types of things that we really want to emphasize in the weight room, that, we're not worried about you lifting as much weight as you absolutely have to, where there's a risk of injury, but we want to make sure that you're working as hard as you can within the confinements of the workout, so that you are becoming a better athlete, and so that when it comes to game day, you're not going to resort back to the easier option or your bad habits. You're gonna resort to the culture and be that, right? Um, to promote this type of climate, coaches must achieve or possess interpersonal skills. We have to connect with every athlete. We have to create those relationships with those athletes, so that we can be there for the players, right? To promote this, coaches must achieve or possess interpersonal skills such as being understanding, approachable, trustworthy, and respectful. Along with these, we want to fine tune our communication skills, such as the ability to listen and comprehend, and be able to listen to every athlete. So regardless if it's that rookie that we're unsure about or that fifth-year vet, we should give them the same amount of airtime and listen to them and comprehend what they're having to say or having to ask, or why they're reaching out to you, so that you can connect with them, be there for them, so that they have that greater buy-in working into that. So again, defining your own culture. Developing a meaningful team culture does not happen by accident. Generally, again, it comes through a tribe mindset where every single player has a role and it's meaningful to that team culture. And it's something that we want to put in and build within our team right away. And it's something that we're always trying to push. So when we look at that culture, especially bringing it to the weight room, we want to make sure that our head coach defines his culture. Once he defines it, it's passed on through the coaching staff relayed down. And especially for a guy like myself with the Thunder, I know what type of culture Coach McCauley wants. And every single workout, I want to bring that out in the players. I want to make sure that they're doing the things that fits that culture. Right now, especially with the pandemic, our big culture is buying in. We didn't have a season last year. We had 5 weeks of practices, finished with a controlled scrimmage, and leading into this year, we don't know what the future holds. So right now, we just want guys to buy in. We want to make sure every single player is doing what they can to benefit the future of the organization. And we want to make sure that we highlight every single player that's doing this, is noticed, and they know that their efforts are making a difference. So we want to develop that tribe mindset to create that team culture. With that, we want to be relational. So again, we want to reach out to every single player. We want to make sure that they all know, that we're here for them, that we're doing what we can for them. If they have any questions, any concerns, that they can talk to us. Especially for myself, everybody in the weight room, when they come in, I want them to be able to talk to me. I want them to be able to come up to me and go, "Hey, coach, I had a rough day at work today. It's minus 45 outside, and I work outside all day. Like, I'm drained. I could look at that athlete and have that conversation with them, instead of having them come in and feel like they can't do that, and then they end up getting injured because we don't have that relationship. We want to be intentional with your culture. So we want to be intentional. So again, every single time the players come into the weight room, that's that culture we're trying to build. We're trying to build that tribe mindset. We're trying to build whatever culture that you want within your team. Be exemplary. So set an example when we do that, right? So we want to make sure that the players know that we're not just saying it and throwing smoke at them, that we live it as well. I always like having a break right before the Thunder come into the weight room, because that's a time where I can work out myself. I take that time to work out and make sure that as players start trickling in, they see that their strength and conditioning coach is buying into the exact same culture and the exact same thing that I want them to be a part of. It's not an accident that happens. That's something that's setting an example so that these guys know that, I'm not telling them to do something that's very challenging and then I go do something totally different. I want to make sure that they know that I'm setting an example. And Thunder guys who know the coaching staff, they do exactly that. And that's something that's super important is, you want to set an example. And then the last thing, of course, we want to be consistent with that. So we want to make sure that everything we do, is consistent and follows all the way through. Right. I love this. It's easy to come up with a cliche catchphrase that looks good in a t-shirt or locker room wall, but the integration of the philosophy underpinning that statement requires a great deal of intentionality. Whatever your team statement may be, yeah, it looks great on the wall, but do you live up to it? Is it something that you bring to the players every single time you have a conversation intentional? Do you make sure you bring it up every time you have that conversation? Is it intentional? Do you live by that same catchphrase? Do you set an example? And is that consistent all the way through your program? So is that consistent from head coach all the way to player number 95 on that depth chart? Now let's get into the good stuff. Coach, enough blabbing about culture and how to build it. What about the weight room? What we got to do? We got to create a routine, right? Creating a routine is so important. It creates an expectation of what the workout's going to be. The players can be prepared for what the session entails. I'm a huge believer in progression. I'm a huge believer in programming. So players on the Thunder, and actually a lot of athletes of mine, when they come in on Sunday, as an example, they know exactly what the workout's going to be from warm up to finish. This is so they can create a routine. They can come in and they can kind of know, today is Sunday squat day. Maybe I shouldn't eat. Maybe I shouldn't go out for brunch today. Maybe I should make brunch at home today, knowing that if I eat a bad meal before this, I'm going to have a bad workout. They know it's coming. They know exactly what the warm up is. We're creating routine. We're getting them into that routine, especially with football, short season. Our practices are the same all the way through. And I'm assuming it's the same from high school all the way down, or high school all the way up, right? Your practice schedule is the same from week to week. And players expect that. It should be the same in the weight room. Create that routine so that the players know what's coming. Second thing I do is I leave life at the door. Again, these guys come from all different walks of life, even in the high school football teams. Two guys that might play side by side might not be friends at the start of the season. They might not even be friends throughout their entire football career. But we got to be able to leave life at the door. So we got to be able, when we walk into that weight room, we forget about school, we forget about exams, we forget about midterms, we forget about minus 40 and work, um, and we can just focus on why we're there. One thing I do before every session, I get the players to do it, is their breathing. So they do a little breathing exercise. Um, I give them a big spiel on how it's going to benefit their squats and help them with endurance, which is true. But the biggest thing is it allows them to shut their mind off for at least a minute, and forget about all the stresses of life. Allow that weight to be lifted off their shoulders so that they can just focus on working out, focus on getting better. Last one is, what's the purpose of the lift? Why are they in the weight room today? Is it a heavy lift day? Is it a conditioning day? Are we in season? Um, Practices have tempo. When you schedule your practice, you schedule in times and places to go from a walk through tempo where players are just tapping shoulders to a thud tempo where players are a little bit more contact, all the way to a full go practice. um, your weight room should have a similar mindset to that, depending on where you are in the off season, and the player should know what that is. So, as an example, for me, I have 2 days in our lifts right now because we're in our strength phase. 2 days in the lifts where we are lifting heavy. I want the guys to lift heavy. I want them to bring the energy. I want them to bring intensity, and I want them to get fired up. But then I have 2 days. I call it dynamic day. That's the day where I don't need them to be fired up, but I just need them to move. I need them to move quickly. The workout shouldn't take as long. There should be less rest periods, and we're just trying to grind through that workout. And the guy should know. I title them that way. I explain the lift that way. That um, they have that tempo when they come into the weight room, and they know the purpose of that lift. With that, we want to create a team atmosphere. So we want it so that the guys are working out together, much like a practice. We want it so that the guys know that, man, I'm going in. I got to squat this twice. I don't know if I can do it. And I look over to the left of me, and it's a teammate of mine, regardless of position, and he's doing the same weight, or you can see it on his face that this is as heavy as he's ever lifted before. And you can look yourself in the mirror and go, I got to do it too. I've got to do the exact same thing because the guy beside me is doing it, right? We want to create that team atmosphere. We want that trust factor, that trust level to be built in the weight room long before they touch the field, at the beginning of training camp, the start of the season. If we create that team atmosphere in the weight room, that builds that buy-in. That the guys now know that the player beside them that they're going to play with has already put the time and the effort in. It shows that they can rally around each other in times of struggle. So you have that player, you ask him to do 6 reps of the bench press, but he just worked 12 hours out in the cold, or he helped dad on the farm, and he's struggling with those last couple of reps. You can have the entire team start cheering him on, and it's a business thing. It's guys picking up each other, being there for each other, and doing everything together, right? And then the last one is use ground rules to create healthy habits. My big ones, clean up after themselves. I always say, I'll set up for you guys so you have the most efficient workout that you can have, so we can get as much done as we can in whatever time frame they're supposed to be there. But the deal is you clean up after yourselves. Um, I do that for two reasons. One, efficiency, especially with my job. I have clients coming in right after. It's tough for me to clean everything up, get another group going. But the second side of that is it creates accountability. It shows the player that, yeah, coach is doing everything he can to make me a better athlete. But at the same time, I still have to take care of myself. You get them to clean up the weight room. You get everybody to clean up the weight room, not just rookies. You get the entire team to clean up the weight room. Next thing you know, you go into the locker room. Everybody's cleaning up the locker room. Next thing you know, you go on a road trip. Everybody's cleaning up the bus. Um, they take that home. They're now starting to clean their bedrooms. They're starting to clean their kitchens, their own homes. It's creating that healthy habit within the weight room. It's building that mentality that everybody helps. Um, Rewards and punishments. And two rewards I got for the guys right now is if they do X amount of things, they get a T-shirt. Second one I have is, if we have X amount of players show up to our workout throughout the week and our average is above a certain number, you guys get protein on Sunday. Here's a reward for just showing up. But if not enough guys show up, you don't get protein. And then there's punishments with that. If you guys make a mess, you don't get protein. If you guys don't clean up after yourselves, you don't get protein. It's creating that accountability. It's creating that accountability within players, and making sure that, guys can say, hey, so-and-so always sneaks out a little bit early, right? He finishes his workout first and he just sneaks out. He doesn't help clean up. Well, then the players start holding him accountable. Hey, man, all we need you to do, clean up that bar. All we need you to do is pick up those dumbbells. Something very simple like that to hold that accountability. Then the last one I have is 2 questions before you ask coach. If it's a question that should go straight to coach, of course, they're always welcome to ask me. But if it's, how do I do this exercise? I always say, go ask a teammate first and then resort back to me. The reason for that is it allows them to rely on each other. They're not just relying on coach to answer all their questions. They now start reaching out to leaders. They now start reaching out to teammates to help them with that. Why are you doing that? Right. And of course, I have my catchphrases. You can't have intensity without intent. I actually stole that from Coach Gildersleeve at the University of Buffalo, but you can't have intensity without intent. I love that. Regardless of what we're doing in the weight room, if you're doing it wrong, you're not getting better, right? You have to have the intent to do it correctly, right? And once you have the intent of why you're doing it, the intensity skyrockets, right? Doesn't mean we always have to lift the heaviest weight. We just want to make sure we do it properly. We do it the way that coach has asked them to, right? We have the intent of why we're doing it. That'll increase the intensity. And of course, super fitting. If you can't cash out if you don't buy in. Find a lot of athletes, they don't want to buy in. They don't want to get dirty. So I get them to buy in. And I always remind them, once you guys buy in, you cash out. And I think a lot of guys have seen that already. I know a lot of other athletes I have in the weight room have seen that already. But that's a huge one I like there. Bring your culture into the room. So bring your culture into the weight room, right? Workout fits the culture intentionally, right? Whatever the culture is, the workout's an expectation during the workout's a match. Right now, Regina Thunder, our 2 ones we're trying to work on is accountability and grit, right? So accountability, again, I make sure the guys clean up after themselves. I make sure they watch the videos prior to going to workouts so they can have an efficient workout. We're making sure that if they're not coming to level 10, that if they're working out on their own, they're filling out their team builder, they're filling out their workouts that I can see that they're holding themselves accountable, or they're working on their own and they're filling those things out, and we're holding that accountable. That's our accountability piece there. And if a guy doesn't do it, we highlight it. All the coaches see it. Leaders of the team have an ability to see it, and then they reach out to those players. They hold those players accountable. Out of 93 players in the Regina Thunder roster, we currently only have 13 that are not filling out their workout sheets. And of those 13, I believe 4 or 5 are rookies just starting to get into the program, just starting to learn the swing of things. We're just trying to help them out, which is huge. We have that buy-in. We have that accountability piece that we should be working out regardless of what the future is going to hold. The second one is grit. We don't know what the season's going to look like. We don't know who we're going to play, when we're going to play, if we're going to play, but we're going to work out. We're going to get better. And it's that grit factor. We don't know what we're working towards, but we're working towards it. And making sure that every time we step in the weight room, we forget life for an hour and 15 minutes, and we have the intent to do what we're supposed to be doing, right? So we want to bring that culture into the weight room. We want to lead from example. The buy-in comes more from the coach than the players. Coach doesn't believe, the players won't. And that's something I'm trying to do every single time, right? I'm trying to bring that energy. I'm trying to bring that that enthusiasm of the players. I really don't care if we play or not. I want to make sure you guys get better. I want to make sure you guys not only become better athletes, but you become better player or better people outside of this room. I want to make sure that if my tire goes flat on the side of the road, that you guys don't just drive by. You're the first one to stop and help out. Um, and you guys are there for the community, where everything of that nature. And I want to show that myself. I want to be the example, right? Um, want to maintain accountability from everyone on the team, right? From head coach to the new recruit, the accountability aspect has to be the same. We have to meet that benchmark. We have to set that standard. Everybody has to follow through. Um, and that's huge, right? So if I'm telling the guys you can't have intensity without intent, and I don't have things set up, or I'm not ready for the workout, I don't have the intent to make them a better athlete. What makes me think that they're going to buy into that same belief? If if I'm, working 10-hour days and we got to be there for the players, but and we have that same expectations and we're not going to be there, you know, how do we expect them to buy in? Another big thing I like to push is, school first, work first. If things come up, let me know. Um, and it's the same for me, right? I want to make sure I take care of everything um, outside of the gym as well, so that I could be healthy, so that I can push the players to be the best player they can be, and then positive space, right? We want to be relational, right? We want to be there. We want to allow the athlete to create their whys. We want to allow the athlete to want to be there. We want them to want to be there on their own. We don't want them to be there just because we said, hey, if you don't show up, you don't play, right? We don't want to create that negative culture. We want them to be there because we want them to be there. Or sorry, they want to be there. They want to be there to be better. They want to be better for the tribe. They want to win a national championship. They want to win a provincial championship, and they want to do it as a team. They're not doing it for themselves. They're doing it for everybody around them while they're in that weight room. And again, that's coming from us as coaches. We want to be there so that they know that we're there for them. So that, again, if they've had a tough day at work or a tough day at school, or they're in the middle of finals, or they have a presentation, or they have things like that, that they can talk to us and we can help them through it. You know, midterm season right now, a lot of guys are messaging me, coach, I can't make it to the workout tonight. I have a midterm tomorrow. I always say, man, that's great. Study. Make sure you take care of that first. Once that midterm's over, do you have free time? They go, yes. And okay, I can get you in the gym if needed. If not, you can go to the clubhouse. Make sure you get your workout in. 10 times out of 10, just having that conversation, that player goes and does their workout because they want to. I didn't tell them they had to. I just said, if you have time, do it. And they always do it. But giving them that ability to have that relationship so that they can buy in on their own, right? And transition from room to field, right? Creating positive habits. Having that light switch mentality, again, knowing when to focus, when to turn it off, knowing when to turn it on. You know, guys show up a couple minutes early. They hang out with their friends, especially right now with COVID. You can't see anybody outside your household. So, our 8 guys come in early, they have a little chit chat, but the second they go into that breathing, that light switch turns on. All right, I'm here to work out now. I forgot about what life is outside of that. I'm here to do my thing, right? Playing with a motor. Motor's built in the weight room, right? We want to build that weight room so that these guys play with that motor. If that's a culture thing that you want, um, that is built in the weight room. That's a place where these players buy in. Um, don't take I shouldn't say don't take the breaks, but they don't quit. They don't give up, right? And in competition, looking at the guy beside you, whether it be the same position or not, man, that guy's lifting heavier than me. He might be 3 or 4 years older than me, but he's lifting heavier than me. I'm gonna be that guy. I'm gonna do that, right? And then motivation, leadership. Who's the guy that's always pushing others? Who's that leader that's always, the rah guy, or he's the guy going up to the youngin and tapping him like, hey, put 5 more pounds on. You can do it. Put 10 more pounds on. You can do it. And then being there for him. Hey, I'll spot you if you put another 5 pounds on. Teaching guys good form when coach isn't around. If you want to be in the weight room with the players, right? It's hard to watch. Right now with COVID, it's easy to watch eight guys, but it's hard to watch, a room full of players if you have the space, because you might be helping one guy, but you have 4 other guys doing the same exercise, and it's hard to coach one and watch the other 4 to make sure they're doing it right. So do you have a player, somebody in the room that can go around and, hey, do this instead, or you're doing this wrong, or this is how it should be done, taking care of that, right? Building each other up. It's never negative when they say, hey, this will make you better. Instead, hey, you're doing it wrong, name calling, things like that. We want to make sure we're always building each other up and we're always being positive about it, right? And then using the team culture examples that are built in the weight room, right? So using that team culture that you want to portray to your players in that weight room. So again, if we want a team with grit. We don't know why we're training. We don't know when we're going to play. We don't know why we're training, but we're going to train as hard as we can. We're going to make sure that we have the intent to become a better athlete. That's always going to happen every time you step in the room. And the last thing, I love it, energy and enthusiasm. If you guys look up a lot of strength coaches from the States, the strength coach is always a crazy one. He's always the wild guy. That's because he has to bring the energy every single day. He sees the guys every single day, 365 days throughout the year. He has to bring the energy. He has to be the one that picks the guys up in the middle of midterm season. He has to be the one that picks them up after a long road trip and gets them going for the week again, right? We want to make sure we have that enthusiasm, right? Who's in charge? Allow the leaders to grow, right? It doesn't always have to be the coach. Let the guys make a couple mistakes. If it's a place where it's not increasing risk of injury, allow them to make a couple mistakes. Send a teammate to coach them. Stand beside a leader. Stand beside a guy, an older player, or someone you see as a leader, and have the player do the drill. And what's he doing wrong? Go tell him. Go fix it. Right. Try mentality, making sure player 1 to player 95 has a role in the team and they know it, especially in the weight room. Actually, I called out a second-year player just the other day for the Thunder. A guy hasn't missed a workout since he started with the team, and he PR'd all last week. So I called him out. Say, hey, man, break him down. Told him why he's breaking the team down. Told him why he's being highlighted. And the guys rallied around that. That's exactly what you want, right? Allowing players to be in charge. I've done this a couple of times with the guys. Asked, hey, so-and-so, do you want to lead this drill? We've done it for the past 3 weeks. You know what we're doing. If you lead this drill, I can walk around a little bit more and I can help the guys and I can coach a little bit more while you kind of take charge. Now you're creating another leader. You're creating that culture that it's not coach first, it's team first. I love this saying, driver's seat and passenger seat, right? Get out of the driver's seat. Be the passenger for a bit. Allow the players to drive the vehicle, drive the bus, you could say, and sit back and and allow them to do their thing. Allow them to build their culture. You see it lots. I say change the direction drills, right? Very simple. You put 4 cones out. You just have one player yell go, right? Then the lineups or whoever's doing it does their change of direction. You can stand back. You can coach. The players can direct themselves. Now you have more players coaching because they feel comfortable to have those conversations, right? Step in when needed. Competition drills, allow players to call out their buddies to compete if the moment's right. Allow them to compete against each other in drills that will benefit the entire team. Conditioning drills, again, allow a player to yell the go call. Sit back and see who's working harder, who's pushing everybody else, right? Again, leading drills or even explaining lifts if applicable. Coming up towards the end here, right? What's your culture? Right? What's your overall culture in and out of the sports? What's your overall culture in and out of your football team, right? We bring that culture into the weight room, but does it carry on outside the weight room? Again, are the guys, the culture you're bringing, are those the guys, helping grandma load her vehicle, pushing the guy out of the rut in the road, helping fix a flat tire, going out in the community and volunteering and serving, and doing all those things, right? So what's your overall culture in all the sport? How are you going to build that culture? So pillars, a lot of teams use the pillar theory, right? Those are the attributes that create the culture. So what are your 4 pillars that you're using to build that culture, and where do they fit? So again, Thunder, our 2 big ones right now are accountable and grit. We're using those two inside the weight room specifically to hold the guys accountable, make sure they're working out, and they're always working out. They're always doing what they're asked. Everybody reaches that baseline. Everybody reaches that regardless, right? And then build the foundation. You should see the foundation of your culture every single day. You should see the foundation, the bare minimum of what you want your culture to be. That should happen every single day, in the weight room, out of the weight room, in the classroom, at work, everything like that, right? We want to hold ourselves to that standard the entire time. And then to finish, two of my favorites, right? Two guys you can look up. I'll start with the first one, Nick Saban. I mean, you guys probably know a lot about him already. But he created that culture that, hey, our standard is our standard, right? University of Alabama standard is the University of Alabama standard. It's nobody else's standard. Regardless of who they play, that's the standard you play at. And if you don't play at that standard, next guy in. You don't play at that standard, we'll find someone who does. And he holds that. He holds that standard from player 1 to player 95. And that is awesome. And that's his culture. And that's how he built this culture. So you see it from classroom to weight room, all the way down the line. Players are holding themselves accountable and getting homework done, make sure they're ahead in schoolwork, everything like that. Second one I absolutely love is PJ Fleck, University of Minnesota. He used the term row the boat. Actually looking up a lot about him for this presentation. He just created his own language. And the biggest thing I loved about him is he brought it with energy. When he first got hired on, the players, the staff, everybody they didn't buy in. They were like, what's this guy talking about? Row the boat. What do you mean row the boat? How is this going to benefit our team? And they're very skeptical. And then I believe they beat Auburn, or there was a game where they won and they shouldn't have won. They were the underdogs in the game, and it kind of clicked. Guys kind of went, oh, row the boat, that mentality. The reason he uses that saying is when you row the boat, you can only see what you've been through. You can't see what you're rowing into, whether it's smooth sails or a storm. And the biggest thing that a lot of people make the mistake of is they stop rowing the boat when they hit a storm. He goes, we don't know if we're hitting a storm. We just keep rowing the boat regardless. And it's stay in that course. And I absolutely love that. And what I loved about it is he just brought that energy every single day to practice, every single day through his coaching staff. He made sure that everybody on the team bought into that row the boat mentality. And now they're constantly, past couple of years, constantly ranked in the top 25. They're a team that's competing in bowl games. They're that team that you want to play for now as a recruit. And it's because of his mentality, his culture of row the boat. We don't care what we're coming up against. We're just buying into each other. We're buying into that tribe mentality, and we're going to row the boat. And then, of course, to finish off, again, review. We want to create relationship with every athlete. Make sure we reach out to every single player. Make sure that they know that they have a role and they belong on the team. We want to give them resources and show you care. We want to get out of the driver's seat. And then the team culture is built and maintained in that weight room, right? We want to bring all of that into the weight room. We want to create rules and guidelines. We want to hold them accountable to that. And again, we want to make sure we care and then show them that we lead by example, that we don't just say what we say, we do it as well. And to finish off their questions.